Our source material would be more clinical, more. That would be our Bible. So again, I already introduced myself. Dr. Lester Mosso, a general surgeon. Now I graduate. Software at CCMC, Software Medical Center, Department of Surgery. Okay? So I have been teaching anatomy, radiation writing, 3 to 4 years additions. So, sculpture, so we'll start now. Again, welcome. So this is the real deal of medicine. And most of you are, what's your pre-med course? Pharmacy, what else? Medtech, what else? Bio, non-medical pre-med. What? Bio. What else? Segway guidance of medicine. Anyone? Anyone? Accounting. Okay lang. What else? Who else? Sorry. So, the accounting technologies, don't press, for I am also an information technology graduate. So, ayaw ka pala ka, doktora lagi ka. So again, our source, our Bible for this one, every information, every test question on my lecture will be taken from this. 8th, 10th edition, more or less, there are very minor differences. But the context is this is first and foremost the fundamentals in anatomy. Your overview and basic concept, and anatomical medical terminology, and your organ systems. Okay? That would be the content for this lecture only. In your book, it's very long. So I don't like very lengthy lectures. I want it to be simple, yet for you to learn. Because when I was a student like you, my, again, attention span is very small. All the more, saying you're the leader of the generation. More or less 5 to 10 minutes to get bored. Fortunately for us, our classroom was downstairs. You can easily get out. I usually get out next 5 to 10 minutes of lecture. Study on my own. That's my style. That's my way of studying. If that is your way, then you should. Just give me a passing grade. That's all I am asking you. So each you again, why do you, a cliche question, why do you want to be dumb later? Okay. Muslim. Why? Muslim guy. Cliche question.
But I don't find a situation in my life where I can say I want to be a doctor. I was in the market with my mom, and then we saw an older woman, a wound sa young leg, and still bleeding. And she doesn't want to go to the doctor because it is expensive now. And I kept looking back at her, even though my mom kept walking. Yeah, so I think I would really want to help and to become a doctor.
Most of it is all because of altruism. We want to help. Yes, we want to help, we want to help. Okay? For financial reasons. Hypocrites. Anyway, first and foremost, we are there. Okay? So, before anything else, I would like to gauge your knowledge now. So, you have internet connection. So, scan this one. For sure, you have Facebook, so internet is no problem for you. You're approximately 150, so I will be expecting now. Five questions that are related to this picture. So I'm just trying to gauge your knowledge, initial knowledge as of now. Okay, in the interest of time, we'll start. So I think most of have less than half of you already. Okay. These will be the typical questions asked in the exam now, on my exam per se. So it is an anatomical plane that passes through the body at right angles of the median and frontal planes, dividing the body into superior and inferior parts. Correct, nalimutan na. Hindi ka answer. Anyway, sige lang. So for your testmanship again, of course, obviously the question is, the frontal plane is already present now. So most likely, the frontal plane would not be the answer. Okay? Again, it's still part of testmanship also. 50-50. 50% knowledge, 50% testmanship. Okay. So a true statement regarding the terms of laterality among body parts. One, spleen is ipsilateral to the left lung. Pancreas is a bilateral organ. Testis is a unilateral organ. Liver is a bilateral organ. Most of the answer already. So, okay, so the answer is spleen is ipsilateral to the left lung. Okay, so let's go by why pancreas, or why is this a mistake? Pancreas is a bilateral organ. What do you mean by bilateral? It's present on the left and right hemisphere of the body. Okay? The pancreas is just one organ located directly smack in the middle in the epigastric area. Okay? Does this is a unilateral organ? That means only one. Of course, check your partners. So liver, again, of course, it is a unilateral organ located in the right upper quadrant. Spleen, ipsilateral, that means what? On the same side. When I say contralateral, it's on a different. For example, spleen is on the contralateral to the left lung, that is false. It is contralateral to the right lung. Okay? Next. The most superficial layer of the inhibitory system. Again, if you do not know what is the inhibitory system, you're done. Okay? Most of you answered correct. I think most of you is the epidermis. Okay? Last. I think this is second to the last. The blood vessel that acts as a pathway for the oxygenated blood. Basic. So again, it is, most of you are correct, pulmonary artery. Okay? So don't get confused with the word artery. It will be explained later on. Artery, that means supposed to be oxygenated blood. Then vein, the oxygenated blood. Don't get confused with this. Last. The hematoma level of the umbilical region. So in the interest of time, of course, most of you are correct now. So, pwede lang tayo mag-lecture? Para mag-lecture. Okay. So again, we'll delve into the very basic anatomy. So, first and foremost, we will discuss about the regional anatomy. So again, head, neck, thorax, okay, back, abdomen, pelvis, perineum, lower limb, and upper limb. It's very basic. Okay, these will be our terminologies that we will use. Okay. As for the limbs, you have regions, gluteal area, sa lubog, okay, the fatty pads on our ass lang, for lack of a better term. Anterior thigh region, paa. Posterior thigh region, anterior knee, posterior knee, anterior leg. When you say leg, in the shin area, anterior leg, posterior leg, anterior talohural, in layman's term, ankle, posterior talohural, and your foot. Okay? Please familiarize. As for the surface anatomy, it is where, when you see the body on the outside, most of you, some of you already have the idea that what is under the skin. Okay? As for the abdomen, in this one, it is divided into 4 quadrants: right upper, left upper, right lower, left lower. Okay? There are also 9 regions of the stomach. Remember, 4 quadrants, 9 regions. Please familiar with the 9 regions. We need not discuss on that one. You need to learn about it. So for this surface anatomy, why is it very important that you have the idea? You have an idea already of what organs are below the under the skin. Okay. So for this one, this is a patient, a stab wound, a penetrating abdominal stab wound patient. For this one, what do you think are the organs involved? At least as a surgeon, you already know what to expect. You expect what the organs are injured at this moment, so that you can, of course, deliver marathon. You are prepared. Okay? So for this one, penetrating abdominal stab wound, where? Right upper quadrant. So when this patient comes to the ER, of course, when you will be on duty at the ER in the future, hopefully God willing. When this patient comes to the ER, of course you will be the one to get that one. Okay? Then you will report to your resident. What will you say to the resident? Doc, I have a patient, stable, etc., etc. The abdominal stab wound is in the right upper quadrant. Right there and then, your resident already know, or the surgeon, or the surgeon of duty already know what to expect of the injuries that the patient has. For this one, what do you think would be the organs involved? Right upper quadrant. What? Gallbladder. Okay, one, gallbladder. Liver. What else? The diaphragm, yes, possible. Although the diaphragm is more or less on the upper portion. Okay. But it could be still possible. What else? What's this? Large colon, of course. Yes, it is a large colon, but specifically what? The transverse colon. Okay? Transverse colon. The duodenum, there are 4 parts of the duodenum. B1, B2, B3, B4, B1. Someone said duodenum. Yes, it is still possible for the duodenum, but only on the upper portion, maybe B1. Okay? Very good. For this one, you have a left upper quadrant stab wound and an infra-umbilical stab wound. What do you think would be the organs involved, just in case it is a penetrating stab wound? The left upper quadrant. Come on. What else? Spleen. Okay, very good. As for the infra-umbilical, well, be specific. In the same intestines, of course, there's a small and large intestine. For small, there are 2 small intestines, right? 3. 2, 3. As for small intestines. Sige lang, basic knowledge. You have the duodenum, jejunum, and the ileum. Okay? Don't worry, we will discuss that later on or on the specific topics. Okay, so as for that, you already know the importance of the surface anatomy. And also that this would be important on your laboratory also. Of course. You will be on the cadaver side. You will be given mostly from the last batch. You'll be given let's say 50 numbers. So that would be 2 numbers on each cadaver, and each cadaver more or less is 1 station, and then that 1 station has 2 numbers. That would be only good for 45 seconds. So you need to identify. So as much as possible, when you go to your cadaver, 2 numbers, you already know the surface anatomy, you already know which organ that is. So that's the first step already. Okay? Systemic anatomy, you have the integumentary, skeletal, articular, muscular, nervous, circulatory, alimentary, respiratory, urinary, genital, very self-explanatory, no need. Okay? Again, the question that was asked for, you have your anatomical positions and planes. First, you have your median plane and the sagittal plane. The median plane would be just dividing the body on the left and right, on the middle. The sagittal plane, mostly, it's the same as on the median plane, but on a more lateral portion. Okay? So when you want to see the organ on the anterior and posterior of the organ, of course you want to have a sagittal plane. Right? You can see the nose as well as the back of the head. Right? If you are on a sagittal plane. Okay? For the frontal and coronal plane, it is basically just dividing the body in the anterior and posterior. Okay? Left and right of the body, don't get confused, the left and the right of the body can be seen. Can you picture that out? It's very basic. For the transverse or axial plane, you will be seeing the body from the top. Okay? You will be dividing the body anterior and posteriorly. This is usually the planes that is used during CT scan. Usually for CT scan, they will use the transverse or axial plane. But you can also request for the coronal plane. Right there. In terms of relationships, I think Clara basic, superior, inferior, anterior, posterior of the body. Okay? You have the palmar and the dorsal. Okay? Don't forget. Tongue also, the dorsum of the tongue is the superior portion, and the one with the frenulum on the tongue, that would be your what? Central. Okay? The same as with the male reproductive organ. The male reproductive organ goes like this now. This would be your dorsum, and when you pull that, when you pull the penis up, still with the frenulum, that would be your ventral portion. Okay? Foot, dorsum, plantar aspect. Plantar aspect is where you will put the foot on the ground, on the surface of the ground. Okay? Very flat. So, I already given the answer. Anyway, for this one, again, this patient came to the ER. Doc, I have a mass on the tongue. What will you say to the patient? Or what will you say to your resident? Just the mass of the tongue. Which portion of the tongue? Okay? From what I have said, this is the dorsum of the tongue, more or less midline. Okay? This is a case of I think this is a squamous cell. So this one, X-ray finding of the right hand. What will you say to your resident? Which fracture? Which bones are fractured? Sige lang. Which bone is this? Which bone is this? Is the radius. This one is the. Okay. One clue, radius always attachments more or less is in the same as in the top. Okay. So how will you report the location of the fracture for this one? How will you tell it? How will you tell it to the resident? Okay. There is a complete fracture. Well, there is a complete fracture on the right hand. Radius ulna distal third. Okay. Why distal third? Why not proximal third of the ulna and radius? What do you mean by proximal and distal? Proximal is near what? Usually our basis for that one is the heart. So proximal, so that is why this is, I will tell my resident for this one, distal third. For distal third, that means I divided the ulna and radius into 3 parts, and the fracture is located on the distal. Okay? It also means middle third and proximal third. So we have the terminologies, understood? Distal and proximal. Okay? So again, the question before, in terms of laterality, you have the bilateral, unilateral, equilateral, and contralateral. Very basic as of now. Sige lang, sayang pa niya. You can easily understand this. In terms of movement, you have the flexion and extension. Understand? Understandable, right? Supination and pronation for the leg. Which is supination? Pronation is apa. Okay? So firstly, you have to know which is the anterior and the posterior side of the organ. Right? So basically, for your guide, this one is the basic or the default. This would be your anterior, so careful with the palm. The palm is always facing that. So this would be the anterior portion of the posterior portion. So mind you, this is very important in terms of bilaterality, etc., on the laboratory exam. You will be very strict on the laterality of it. Okay? So you have your already extension and flexion of the hip joint, the elbow joint, okay? As well as the wrist. And then you have your abduction and adduction. What do you understand with the abduction and adduction? Usually, abduction, going away, you will be abducting someone. Okay? Let this be going away towards the median leg. Okay? This is the body and abduction movement. Abduction, of course, going there. Outside. Adduction and. Okay? Again, abduct, adduct. Towards the median leg. The problem now would be, what about the middle finger? As you can see in the illustration, there is no adduction on the middle finger because it is on the median plane of your hand. Diba? Always medial and lateral abduction. Do you understand? Huh? And then, abduction of the fingers, adduction. You also have the extension of your thumb and the flexion of your hand. Okay? Again, abduction and adduction, medial rotation. The medial and lateral, of course, understandable naman, di ba? Medial rotation towards the medial of the body. Lateral rotation towards the lateral side of the body. Basic. Dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. Again, in terms of anatomy of your body, this would be your dorsum. Going to the dorsum, that would be your dorsiflexion. Going to your plantar, that would be your plantar flexion. See? Okay? Inversion and reversion, still the same. Going medial side, going to the lateral side. Lateral bending, rotation of the neck, elevation, reversion, basic. Protrusion and intrusion, easily understand. Now your reading assignment would be to differentiate anatomical variation versus congenital phenomena. Easily done. Now we will go to the integumentary system. Don't worry, we will be having breaks from that. So, integumentum, that means covering the largest organ system in the body. Organ system, but the largest organ depends usually on the largest single organ that would be your liver. Functions: protection, containment, thermoregulation, sensation, synthesis, and storage of vitamin. Okay. The most superficial layer, again, that was the question before, that would be your epidermis, keratinized epithelium, avascular. What do you mean avascular? Okay. No blood vessels. Okay. Then protective outer surface, and then you have the layer, the epidermis, you have the basal layer, regenerative, and the primitive. Okay. Next layer would be the dermis, supplies nourishment to the avascular epidermis. You have it there, you have the collagen and elastic fibers that provide skin tone, strength, toughness. You have what we call these tension lines or cleavage lines of glandular. Predominant pattern of the collagen fibers of the dermis. For this, you have this illustration. In case you will become a surgeon later on, or a PRS or plastic reconstructive surgery, you need to respect these glandular lines. No? Repair along or incision along these tension lines or glandular lines will result in a very superior cosmesis. Okay? Your incisions or the scar will be less scarring afterwards. Mind you. So as much as possible during surgery, please respect these tension lines. As much as possible, your incisions should be in accordance with these tension lines. This is what we will study during surgery process, especially in your plastics and reconstructive surgery. Okay? Now you have the dermis, you have your erector villi, you have your erector hairs and cause goosebumps, and then the preservative glands helping the secrete oil products into the skin. Why? You have your thermoregulatory function for this one. Sweat glands, separation of water excretion, provide heat loss, and then arterioles and dermis dilate to negate heat and constrict to minimize heat loss. The next layer would be your subcutaneous tissue. This would be your what we call the superficial fascia. This between the skin and the underlying fascia contains most of the body's fat. And you have your loose connective tissue, sweat glands also, and your neurovascular structures. Now you have your skin ligaments. This would be your fibrous bands that attach the deep surface of the dermis and subcutaneous tissue to the deep fascia. Deep fascia, you have your subcutaneous tissue as your superficial fascia, and you have your deep fascia already. Okay, the one that connects these ones would be the skin ligaments. So it determines the mobility of the skin over deep structures. Long and sparse would be for mobile structures, and then short and abundant, the skin would be less mobile. So for the fascial compartments, what is a fascia? So the fascia is a wrapping or packing and insulating material of the body, the deep structures of the body. Again, you have your superficial, which is your subcutaneous tissue. You have your deep, which is a dense organized connective tissue layer. You go your back, and your investing, which are your extensions of the deep fascia into deeper structures. Or, for example, your elysium ligaments. This is very important, especially on the for the compartment, fascial compartments. This is important, especially on your thigh and leg. Mostly on the extremities, upper and lower extremities. So they group the muscles. What they usually do is they group the muscle into compartments with similar functions and nerve supply. They have intermuscular septa that separates these fascial compartments. These intermuscular septa attaches the bones, and they contain or direct the spread of tumor or infection. Okay, you have this what we call fasciitis, infection of the fascia, infection or inflammation of the fascia. Okay, this will direct your infection as well as the spread of the tumor. It depends on which fascial compartments the infection is, and also the infection or the tumor is. It will spread on that fascial length. Now we have this, what we call the retinaculum. You have the flexor retinaculum of the wrist. For the flexor retinaculum, of course, your wrist is flexing there. This would be your flexor retinaculum. For the extensor retinaculum, obviously it's on the dorsal portion, since you will be extending this one. So they are near the joints, markedly thickened deep fascia. They hold tendons in place where they cross during joint flexion and extension. Now you have what we call this as bursa. There are closed sacs or envelopes of serous membrane. They confer mobility of the structure surrounded by the bursa in a confined space. Usually this is collapsed. We have the visceral layer and the parietal layer. The visceral layer usually what we call the inner layer, and the parietal layer would be the outer layer. One prime example of this one would be your peritoneum. It will be discussed later on. Peritoneum has a visceral and parietal layer. Okay? This is just basic overview. It will be discussed thoroughly on the subsequent lectures on those specific topics. So then, the skeletal system, you have your appendicular skeleton and your axial skeleton. What do you mean by appendicular skeletons? How would you differentiate between appendicular and your axial skeletons? How would you differentiate? Basing on the examples.
particular skeletons are usually long bones, while facial skeletons are
Long bones, facial skeletons, bones. Okay, mga appendicular. Okay, got that? Got that? Usually, appendicular skeletons are on the lateral side of the body. Facial skeletons mostly on the midline. Remember? The cranium, when you spot the different spot. Facial skeleton, cranium, skull, hyoid bone, the vertebra, the trunk, the ribs. The ribs is mostly on the midline because it is connected on the midline, the vertebra. Sternum, vertebrae, and tail. Okay? For the cartilage, you have the semi-rigid connective tissue. Forms parts of the skeleton where flexibility is required, and they are also avascular. So when you injure the cartilage, most of the time it will take a very long time because of its avascularity. Okay? I would rather have a fracture than a cartilage tear. Because the bone is a vascular organ. The bone, again, a living tissue, highly specialized form of connective tissue. You have your function, support, protection, movement, storage of calcium, and hematopoiesis. Then you have the periosteum and the perichondrium. Fibrous connective tissue covering each skeletal element and cartilage respectively. Periosteum covers what? The bone or cartilage? Bone. Okay, periosteum, that is covering bone. Perichondrium, that means peri, outside. Chondrium, that means cartilage. Okay, they nourish the external aspects of the skeletal tissue, then capable of laying down more cartilage and bones, and usually attachments of tendons and ligaments. Then you have the compact types of bones. You have the compact and spongy bones, distinguished by the amount of solid matter they contain. Then you have the medullary cavity. Here contains specules or trabeculate of spongy bone and bone marrow. Then you have the classification of bones: long bones, short, flat bones, irregular, seasonal. Bone markings and formations. Please familiarize with this one. They appear on bones whenever tendons and ligaments and fascia attach. This is one of the favorite ones to tie. Now, of our orthopedic surgeons will lecture later on in the laboratory. Okay, these bone markings and formations. These the condyles, epicondyles, etc., etc. Okay, please be familiar with this one. And then for the bone development, you have these intramembranous ossification and your endochondral ossification. What do you mean by this one? I think you're familiar with this one. Huh? Intramembranous. What do you mean by this one? Anyone? How about mitochondria? In a very simple layman's term, intramembranous ossification, of course, it all comes from mesenchymal models of bone during embryonic period. But the difference would be for the endochondral ossification, those mesenchymal models tend to form first from the endochondral. That means it has to form first first as the cartilage, and then bone deposition will replace the cartilage later on. Usually it is on the long bones. For the intramembranous, the mesenchymal models usually ossify directly, for the direct ossification. no need to undergo for the mesenchymal, no need to undergo to be a cartilage. You need to differentiate the cartilage and then ossify it. For the intramembranous, direct ossification occurs, usually on the backbone. So, for example, your brain. Okay? For the long bone, this would be the development. This would be, for example, for this one, this would be the endochondral ossification. You need an epiphyseal plate for this one. Okay? When this epiphyseal plate closes, more again around height. Okay? In simple terms, endochondral cartilage must be laid first before it ossifies. Intramembranous, direct ossification. So since the bone is a vascular organ, of course, blood vessels are present. So nutrient arteries, one or more per bone, pass obliquely through the compact bone or the shaft of the long bone via the nutrient foramen. Look for this one in the cadaver or in the model. It will be tagged definitely by your orthopedic surgeon. You have your periosteal arteries located in the periosteum and nourishment usually for the compact bones. You have your Purkinje systems, osteals, microscopic canal systems. They house the small blood vessels, the pathway of the blood vessels to reach the osteocytes or the bone cells. Welcome. This is welcome Dr. Mark. So you have your periosteal nerves, of course, pain fibers sensitive to tearing and tension. The bone is partially supplied with sensory tendons. For a while, let's take a break for a while.